So for those of you who were not with us last week, for those of you that were not with us last week, we transitioned over to the full version of Interlocked, and we started on lesson 8. This is our worksheet for this lesson. So you're used to a packet. This is it for this lesson. So if you open your folder, you should have this. If you were here last week, you should have lines drawn like mine. If you were not here and you do not have one of these pages in your folder, raise your hand and I will give you one. Okay, you don't have one? Wait, can I see what it looks like? Okay. Yep, looks like that. Okay. So Aviana needs one. Christina, do you have yours? Yep, right there. That's the one. Okay. Blake needs one. Hunter needs one. And Gabe missed one. Okay, can you hand that back to Gabe? And then here's one for you. Okay. So what we did last week was we broke into groups by, I think, either 2 groups or groups by table. And you guys looked at the left side. The left column here says ideas or problems in the world. So these are ideas, things that you're going to hear in the world. Like the first one is about a devastating disease that spreads easily and gets a lot of people sick. So then you looked on the right side and you tried to find the biblical truth, the truth from the Bible that you would use to answer the question of why this happens. Okay? And we did that all the way down. It took a little while. And then we started going through which ones match and why. Now, thankfully, we didn't get super far last week on looking at the ones that match. I think we only did the first one. So if you did not fill it in last week, you can either try to run through really quickly and do it, or as we go through, you can draw the line to the correct one. Either one works because we're going to explain it as we go. So the first one that we did was a devastating disease that spreads easily and got a lot of people sick. And we had a pretty split. Not everyone got this one. So this one matches with God's curse upon the ground. And we looked at some Bible verses that show us why that is. So we know that there are plagues in the world because something came into the world when Adam and Eve sinned. What was it? Death, sin, all the bad things, right? So we looked at 1 Timothy 6, verse 17, and we learned that the world was created for our enjoyment. So while Adam and Eve did have chores to do, they did have a responsibility to take care of the earth was created for our enjoyment and for God's glory. And then we learned that Genesis 3, verse 17, we'll turn to that really quickly. Genesis 3, verse 17. Someone want to read that for us? Okay, go ahead. Nice and loud.
And to the man he said, since you listened to your wife and ate from the tree, whose fruit I commanded you not to eat, the ground is cursed because of you. All your life you will struggle to scratch a living from it.
So what does it tell us? Because they sinned, the ground is cursed. Good. So that's really important for us to understand, because when we're talking about back when we were looking at creation in the fall, we learned that perfect trees, perfect plants suddenly had diseases. They would rot. Things would happen that were not good. Well, that's true of the human body, right? When God created Adam and Eve, was there sickness? Was there cancer? Were there colds, toothaches? No. Their bodies were created perfectly. But when they sinned, they brought in, what was that D word? Death. And we know that from the time that we're born, our bodies are already beginning to break down, right? They're beginning to decay. They're beginning to die. And so now we have even vitamin deficiencies. We get headaches, our vision, right? How many of you wear glasses? Quite a few in this room. So your vision can start to fail. Things like osteoporosis, where your bones get fragile, all kinds of things can happen to our bodies because they're no longer perfect, right? So who can be blamed? If we read that verse one more time, start at since you.
Since you listened to your wife and ate from the tree, whose fruit I commanded you not to eat.
So we have some important words there. So we know that the ground is cursed. And what do the next 3 words say? Say it loudly so they can hear it.
Because of you.
Because of you. So whose fault is it that the ground is cursed? Right, Adam. Is it God's fault? No. Because he said from the beginning that there would be death, right? If you eat from the fruit, what would happen? You will surely die. So God told them this is what's going to happen, and then they made the decision to do that, and then death came into the world. But thankfully, this fallen state of the world is temporary. The Bible says that there will be a day when this curse is reversed. And I think we had just read Romans 8, verses 20 to 25 last week when we had to wrap up. So let's go ahead and turn to that. So find Romans. Back table, find Romans. Romans chapter 8. Goodness. There we go. And we're verses 20 to 25. Okay, so I have one person who wants to read. Do I have four more?
Wait, Romans 1?
1, 2, 3. Romans 8. I have two more people who want to read.
20 to what?
That's 4. One more. Okay, and 5. So we'll start up here, and then Hunter, then Blake, then Gabe, and then Logan. So we're starting. Actually, that's 6 verses. Do I have a 6? Okay, number 6. So you'll be the last one. All right, go ahead.
Against its will, all creation was subjected to God's curse, but with eager hope. It's number 25.
You're on 21. You're doing 21 for us. But with eager hope.
Verse 21.
Mm-hmm.
Mine is different.
Are you on Romans 8?
Yeah.
Oh, it is going to be different because I bet you have a different translation. So let's see. 20, you're on 21, right there. So you can say God plans.
God plans to send the creation will please die. One is to will both away and God wanted the same freedom the world his children.
Okay. Blake, you should be 22.
But we know that all creation has been growing as in the pains of childbirth, right up to the present.
23. Yeah.
Every believer is also growing, even though we have the Holy Spirit within us as a foretaste of future glory. For we are long body released from sin and suffering. We wait for eager hope for this day when God will give us a full grace, including a new body stage promise.
We were given this hope when we were saved. We already have something. We don't need to hope for it.
But if we look forward to something we don't yet have, we must wait patiently and
Okay, good. So we know that all creation was subjected to God's curse. But we know that it's not going to stay this way. It's only temporary. So it tells us here in verse 21 that the creation looks forward to the day when it will join God's children in glorious freedom from death and decay. What do you think that means? So the whole creation looks forward to the day when it will join God's children in glorious freedom. But it's freedom from what? Look at verse 21.
Death and decay.
From death and decay. So what does that mean for creation? Why is creation looking forward to that day? Yeah, so what will the world look like at that time? Perfect. Right, and free from death and decay. So not only do we as humans look forward to that day when the world will be perfect, but creation looks forward to that day.
I'm pretty sure I know where the Garden of Eden is.
Do you? What do you think?
doesn't say.
Yeah, remember Ryan showed us that video? And the guy said like that.
Should be present day Iraq, where Babylon was, interestingly enough.
No, I don't know Babylon. Right? Wait, is it Babylon?
It's been gone.
It was.
I'm just thinking about like then they rebuild it.
Yep, they will rebuild it. All right, well, while you look for that, we'll look at verse 23. So, we just learned that creation has been groaning. It wants to go back. It wants to be restored. It wants to be free from death and decay. And then it says, we long for our bodies to be released from sin and suffering. How many of you do not want to get another cold or flu or sinus infection or all those bad things, right? We long for the time when we can make it through Christmas and New Year's and everything and not get sick, right? We want our bodies to be released from that. So let's see. I'm going to pull up this picture real quick, which is in my notes, but not in our slide. This is page 6. Page 6. So right here.
Guys, quiet. But we quiet.
Oh, made it too big. Okay, well that's apparently as good as it's getting. So, this is the chart that we're going to look at for right now. So we know between creation and the fall, we learned about this already, right? The world was what? The world was perfect. This was the normal that God created, right? Now, after the fall, everything has now been what? What's the opposite of normal? We learned it. Starts with AB. AB, abnormal. We live in an abnormal world right now because the way that God created it to be was very good. It tells us in Genesis, right? He created the world perfectly and it was very good. But after the fall, we've been living in an abnormal world. This is not how it was supposed to be. We all know that, right? When someone close to us dies, we say, this isn't right. It's not right that this happened, right? We know inside of us that something is not right. We know that the world shouldn't be this way, and we all long for a time when it's not like that anymore. So we live in a world right now that is abnormal, not according to the design that God created it to be, right? But creation and we also look forward to a time when it won't be that way. And when will that change?
Judgment.
After judgment. So, how many of you know that Jesus is coming again? You should, right? Jesus is going to come back. And after when he begins his reign for the 1,000-year kingdom, after that, the world will go back to normal. God will restore it. Right? So, we have mankind in creation. They were innocent. The world was perfect. And then, when they sinned, they brought in sickness and death and decay. But there's coming a time when the whole earth and the people in it will be free from sickness, death, decay. Okay, let's see. So Revelation 21, verse 4. Somebody want to read that? You know what, Josie, you can read that for us. Revelation chapter 21. 21. Chapter 21, verse 4. Did you find it? Good. Ooh, some big words here. So let's look at this. He will wipe away every tear from their eyes, and there will be no more what?
Sin.
Death. No more sorrow. No more crying. No more pain. Those are big words. We're going to write those down. Not that they're big words, but they're important words. So there will be no more
Sorrow.
no more death. No more sorrow. no more crying,
Tears.
and no more pain. That's for us and for the world. And then what else does it say? All these things are for how long?
Forever.
Gone forever. Imagine a life where there is no death, no sorrow, no crying, no pain. Does that sound good? I think it sounds fantastic. Come on in. I think your folders are over there. All right, so that takes us to idea number 2. So idea number 2 was the idea that 2 men or 2 women can get married. Can they do that?
Yes. No.
What do you think?
No.
So even if they can do that in the world, does God see that as a marriage? Does God look at those people as a married couple? What do you think? No? All right, let's see. So what line did you draw that to? Okay, did anybody get anything else?
No.
Nope. All right, let's see if you're right. Of course you were right. The divine institution of marriage. So let me go back to my pictures here, if it'll let me. Oh, doodles. This guy. All right. So we learned at the beginning about 3 divine institutions. They were the first ones. When God created the earth, he created man and woman. He gave us 3 divine institutions. What were they?
Family, marriage, and responsible dominion.
What was the first one?
Family.
Oop.
Marriage.
Oop.
Divine
Responsible
institution.
dominion.
Responsible dominion. They were to rule responsibly. And then God created who?
Adam. Eve.
Eve, right? Because Adam was given the responsible dominion. He was to work and take care of the garden. But then God said, it's not good for man to be alone. And he created Eve. So then we have the divine institution of marriage. And then he told them to be fruitful and multiply. So then we have the divine institution of family. Good. So ruling means to take care of it. And filling means to procreate and fill the earth with their children. So we read about that in Genesis 1, verse 28. God blessed them and said, be fruitful and multiply. Fill the earth and govern it. So what does it mean to have responsible dominion? To govern it. What does it mean to govern something? To rule over it. Good. Reign over the fish in the sea, the birds in the sky, and the animals that scurry along the ground. But God did not mean for man to do this alone. So what did he do? He made Eve. He created the woman, and woman means just right? Adam looked around and he saw that all of the other animals, there were multiples, and they worked together, right? But then he looked around and he saw no one else that looked like him. So God created a woman, just right. So then in Genesis 2, God said, I will make a helper who is just right for him. So the Lord God made a woman. How did he make her? From what? Adam was made from the dust, and then Eve was made from? His rib. Good. And then he brought her to the man. And so Genesis 2, verses 23 says, at last, the man explained, this is bone from my bone and flesh from my flesh. She will be called woman because she was taken from man. And then verse 24, someone read that for us. Genesis chapter 2, verse 24. Gotta go all the way back to the beginning. Genesis 2. All right, who wants to read it? Blake, you got it? Nice and loud.
This explains why a man leaves his father and mother and is joined to his wife and the two are
Good. So that last part. He's joined to his wife, and the 2 are united into 1. Excuse me. So when God wanted to create someone who was just right for man, what did he create? A woman. He didn't create another man, right?
Absolutely.
He didn't create another animal. He intentionally created a woman. And God gave this woman to Adam in marriage, and the 2 were united into 1. And this was the first marriage in the Bible, and it's where we get our second divine institution of marriage. And God created woman in such a way that together with man, they could have babies. Can 2 men have babies? No. And they would be able to produce children of what gender?
Any boy or girl.
Boy or girl. Were there other options? No. And in that way, they could fill the earth. And man and woman were created so that each gender would complement the other, right? When we talked about creation, we talked about how women have certain strengths and men have certain strengths. Men can lift heavier things. Women are more gentle. There are differences, but when they come together, they complement each other. And this is how man and woman would be able to successfully fulfill God's plan for them. But with the fall, mankind and all of the divine institutions were messed up. They were made dirty. They were perverted in all kinds of ways, right? There was no limit to how man could corrupt, warp, and reinterpret everything good that God gave. So that is where the world started to push this idea, right, that two men can get married and two women can get married. But it's just one of the many ways that the divine institution of marriage that God gave us has been messed up. Ultimately, mankind has chosen to ignore the creator-creature distinction, and people have rejected God's revelation and replaced it with their own ideas. So, let me think. So we talked about some ways that the divine institution of marriage has been messed up by the world, right? What were some of the ways that mankind, man and woman, married couples have messed up God's divine institution of marriage? Right? So getting divorced, marrying someone else. What else? What are some other ways that man and woman have tried to destroy God's design for marriage?
They can like leave each other and just like leave like the kids all by themselves and like I don't know how to
Okay, so they can abandon their families, abandon their marriages. They can get divorced and marry somebody else. What are some other things that married couples can do to mess up, God's design?
They get a really bad argument.
Okay, so they no longer have that unity, right? So now they can butt heads. Yes. Okay, they can kill their babies. They can cheat, so they can covet someone else instead of the person that they're married to. There are lots and lots and lots of ways, right, that people can be irresponsible. How about abuse, right? You can have one spouse that abuses the other one. There are so many ways. So the world pushing this idea that a man can marry a man and a woman can marry a woman is on the same level. It's just another way that man has tried to pervert or mess up or ruin or change God's design for marriage. So we remember that there were two levels, right? We had level 1 and level 2. There was creator, and then there was man. And what level? Who is level 1? Who's the creator? God. And who is level 2?
Satan, God, and Jesus.
All of us, right? So the problem that we keep having ever since sin came into the world is that man doesn't want to be level 2. Man wants to be level 1. They want to call all the shots. They want to make all the rules. But who will always be in level 1? God will. So no matter how man tries to pervert the ideas, tries to mess up God's design for marriage and his divine institution, God will still always be in charge, and his design, his standard is always going to be the standard that he weighs us against. But even churchgoers do sometimes build their own theories or theology based on their own or their friends' experiences. They think they can understand their experiences, like their innermost feelings, by interpreting them without any reliance on God's revelation or on his word. And this is dangerous. God's word provides the guidelines for how to correctly interpret the world. So if you were not here last week, we talked about, get back over. We talked about worldview, and it was really important. Got to get back over there. Okay.
We don't talk about that stuff.
Here we go. So our knowledge of the Bible helps us understand the world that we live in today, right? So we can answer so many questions just by looking at the book of Genesis and seeing how God designed the world and what his intention was for it. So another word for viewing the Bible or viewing the world based on the Bible is called a worldview. So we talked about this example of this picture. So when we look at this picture, what color is the sky?
Red.
Blue. What color is the grass?
Blue.
Green. What color are the clouds?
Red.
White. But if I put on a pair of red tinted sunglasses and then look at the picture again, is it going to look the same?
No.
No. So now what color is the sky?
Red.
Kind of pink, kind of purple. What color is the grass? Red. What color are the clouds?
Pink.
The clouds are pink. So it definitely changed the way we see this picture, right? It changed the way we see the world. But when you look around, when you take the glasses off and you look at this picture, what color is the grass actually? It's actually green. And the sky is actually, and the clouds are actually. Did that change? When you put on your glasses, does the way that the world actually is change? Listen carefully. If I put on glasses, is the grass actually no longer green? No, the grass is still green, right? The sky is still blue. The clouds are still, but I see them differently, right? When I look through my glasses, I see the world in a different way. But the way that the world is still the same. And that is the same way with God's truth, right? The Bible, the truth, the way that God created the world, his design is right, period. Right? It doesn't change. I might put on my glasses and I might think differently, but the world is the way that it is. God is God, and his rules are his rules, right? Nothing has changed. I'm just looking at it differently. And that is what this is when people try to tell you, oh yeah, well, God said that marriage is a man and a woman, but I don't see it that way. Because I have my worldview, my worldly worldview glasses on. And I think that I should be at level 1. And I think that it's fair that 2 women should be able to get married. But does that change reality?
No.
Does that change God's design? Does that change right and wrong? No. But that's the way they're choosing to see it. So worldview is so important because the way that you look at the world matters in everyday situations, right? So we want to make sure that when we put on our glasses, now they're not real glasses, right? But we want to make sure that when we look at the world, we're using the Bible to answer these questions. So we looked at some examples. So over here we had our biblical worldview glasses. This means we look at everything based on the way that the Bible tells us it is, right? We base it on God's word and his design and what he tells us. And then over here we had our pagan worldview glasses. That's non-believer glasses. That's people who do not use the Bible, but they use their own thoughts, their own beliefs. They put themselves at level 1. Yes.
I saw glasses just like those on Roblox for 25,000 Robux, but it also has horns. So.
Yeah, I should have found some with horns. That would have been even better. Anyway, so our example that we used here was that there's only one race. The Bible tells us there's one race, and it's called the human race. And we know that we all go back to which 2 humans? Adam and Eve. And then we go back to which 2 humans? Noah and his wife, right? So we know that we are all from the human race. There is no such thing as different races, right? But the pagan worldview glasses, those ones that tell you that the grass is red, they will tell you that there are many races, and not only that, but my race is better than yours. But when you look at the Bible, you see that that is not the case at all. That is completely a man-made idea because someone put on their regular pagan worldview glasses and decided that they could design it better than God. Can anyone design the world better than God? Absolutely not. So another example was that the earth is only 6,000 years old. We know this because the Bible gives us dates And it is very, very, very on point with its dates, right? It tells you this is when this was created, and this many years later, this person was born, and this many years later, this person was born, and this person died, and it's very specific about the number of years so that you can calculate 6,000 years old. But then you have people who put on their red tinting glasses, and they say, you know what? I haven't seen dinosaurs in my lifetime, and that volcano looks really tall. So, I think it's millions of years old. But do they have anything to base that on? No, they don't. And the grass is still green, but they're seeing it red. Yes.
Earth population is more than how old Earth is.
That's true. That's true.
If they wear those type of glasses, they're actually seeing the grass black.
Well, you never know. It could just be a dark red. Anyway. Okay, so let's see. Romans. We're going to skip that. Well, maybe not. Okay, we're going to go to Romans 1. Because it's important. Romans 1, verses 26 and 27. Actually, no. We're going to look at the second part of verse 27. Romans 2. And we're going to start at the word men in verse 27. Verse 27, it's the second part. So what is the first part of that? The chapter is 1. Did you find it? Romans 1. And then we're verse 27, but the second half where it says men. Okay, Micah, you have that for us? Romans 1, verse 27, but we're going about halfway down that verse. It'll start with the word men.
Men did shameful things with other men, and as a result of this sin, they suffered within themselves the penalty they deserved.
Okay, so what's the first part of that say? Men did what?
Did shameful things with other men.
Men did shameful things with other men. So when we read this verse, do we get the idea that God's okay with it? No. Because how does he describe this? Men did what? Shameful things. Now, when he created Adam and Eve back in Genesis, he blessed them and he told them to do what?
Multiply.
Yeah, to go forth and multiply. He said that was a great thing, right? He wanted the man and woman together in a marriage, and that was his design. But here we see when the world tells us, what does it say here? The idea that 2 men or 2 women can get married. When we read what it says here, it says men did shameful things. And then what's that next line? And as a result of, what does it say there? Who's still in Romans 1? Blake, tell me what it says. And as a result,
They did.
verse 27, it says, and as a result, did you find it?
I already suffered with their.
Okay, go ahead.
As a result of this sin, they suffered within themselves the penalty they deserved.
So we see that God describes it as shameful first. And then it says, as a result of this what? Of this sin. So here we have in the book of Romans, God saying that men with other men is shameful and it's a sin. So when the world says 2 men can get married, 2 women can get married, it's fine. What does God say here? That it is shameful and that it is sin. Then it says they suffered within themselves the penalty they deserved. So does it sound like these men who were engaging in this activity were feeling good on the inside? Does it sound like they were proud of what they were doing?
No.
Does it sound like they felt like they were honoring God with their actions? No. So not only does it say that it's shameful, does it say that it's a result of sin, or that it's sin, but it also says that they're suffering on the inside because of this choice. So when the world tells you this lie, right, you can point to the divine institution of marriage that shows you how it's supposed to be and how God said that it was very good, right? His design was very good. And then you can take them to Romans and show how it says that a man and a man together, a woman and a woman together is shameful and it's sin, and that it's going to hurt them on the inside, right? They suffered within themselves. Who in here likes to suffer? Anybody? Anybody like to suffer? Do they like penalties? Anybody?
Wait, you're still.
They suffered within themselves the penalty that they deserve. Not good things happen, right? And if you read a little bit before that, it's not only talking about men with other men, it's talking about women with other women. All right, let's see where we were here. So that was Romans. All right, so number 3. The belief that technology or knowledge of a skill can be evil. I'm interested to see or to hear which one you match that with.
Not having the knowledge and skill to make wine.
Okay, so Noah having the knowledge and skill to make wine plus his drunkenness. Anybody get anything different?
What is it?
On your paper, we're on the 3rd one down. The belief that technology or knowledge of a skill can be evil.
Noah having the knowledge and skill to make wine.
Okay, anybody have anything different?
Yes, I have
God cursed the ground. Well, number 1, you should have fixed that.
I know.
Okay, well, as long as you know.
Wait.
Get back to where we were. Okay, so if you got that first one about Noah having the knowledge and skill to make wine in his drunkenness, you can pat yourself on the back. You got it right. So let's learn about this. Shh. Listen up, listen up. Okay. How many of you have a friend or a family member and they tell you that technology is evil? Usually it's like a grandpa or a dad or something. They tell you that it's evil. They tell you that bad things, and they'll tell you that bad things are going to happen because you have that technology. How many of you have heard that? Lots of you. Good. So, some people blame technology for the evil in the world. Shh. So what are some examples? What do they say about the technology that's evil? Okay. What do they tell you?
Yeah, like sometimes I feel like people say that we came from apes and women and women can get married.
Okay. So about technology, like let's say the internet. How many of you have heard someone say something bad about the internet? Like it's unsafe, that it's just full of bad things. Okay. How about smartphones? How many of you have heard a parent, friend, family member say that there's something bad about smartphones? That those things are terrible, bad things are going to happen? How about social media? Facebook, TikTok, X. What are all the ones now? I don't even know anymore. Twitter. So all those things. How many of you have heard someone say that those things are bad? Bad things. It's evil. Don't get on there. How about, you probably don't know about online gambling, but has anybody told you about that? You know about online gambling?
Oh yeah, Jaden loves it.
Okay. So how about slandering, online harassment? So people get on Facebook and they see people fighting and arguing on the internet, and it's just vicious. How many of you have heard that all those things, people are just nasty online, and they say things online that they wouldn't say in person? How many of you have heard that?
Somebody harassed me.
Probably a lot. How many of you have heard that there's terrible information on the internet? Like you can learn how to make bombs, you can learn how to do terrible things. Okay. So we have just heard a whole list of things that are wrong with technology. Now, let's think about it. The person who created the internet, do you think that they created it so that it would be evil?
Yes.
Do you think that they created it And the first thing they did, this is so great. I'm going to make this and I'm going to teach people how to make bombs. And I'm going to teach them how to make poison. It's going to be fantastic. Do you think that that's why they created the internet?
Yes.
No. How about the phone? Do you think that the first person who created the phone did it for bad reasons?
No.
Do you think that the person who first created the phone thought that one day we would be able to look at the phone and go on the internet and swipe around and see pictures? No. Why do you think the phone was first invented?
Call.
So they can talk to people that are far away instead of traveling and waiting for notes.
Actually,
Right.
it was for military reasons because they used their phones back then. The first phone was big. It was like this big box.
Mm-hmm.
They used it in the military to call the jets up to bomb places.
And also to get their ammo,
Yeah.
they would be on a radio and tell people Tootsie Rolls to get more ammo. And once
All right.
they actually got
So
Tootsie Rolls,
they created these things.
I've seen that video.
So these pieces of technology were created usually to make life easier, right? It's easier for me to call somebody than it is for me to get in the car and drive to their house, right?
Gabe said, what's wrong with making bombs?
I'm a friend of his.
And another example, imagine, listen up. Imagine if every time you had to tell someone something important, you had to write them a letter and go over to the mail, to the post office, yep, and send your letter in the mail and then wait for them to get it and then wait for them to now write you a letter and send it back. But it's very time sensitive information. Does that make sense?
No.
Or is it better to send an email?
Yes.
It makes more sense to send an email, yes.
My friend said that they were going to write a note to their other friend and then drive to the house to get it. And I was like, why would, when you go drive to their house, why wouldn't you just tell them?
So we have just made a long list of reasons why technology is bad, but let's dig into that. So people might be quick to tell you to stay away from technology because it leads to sin. But the Bible has an interesting perspective on this. The Bible tells us, or demonstrates to us, that Noah had access to technology. How many of you are surprised by that?
What?
Very surprising that Noah had access to technology.
Wow.
So before the flood, God had already given Noah technology. Can anyone guess what that might be? Sticks and stones?
The first radio.
The first radio? What do you think?
DVD player. The computer before computer.
All right, and huh?
Early access.
It's like you can have like a watch
For the sun.
It's like this watch. Oh, they didn't have
What do you think, Blake?
like probably a grapevine to like make wine.
Okay,
How was it?
so let's see. Who gave Noah the instructions to build the ark? God did. Now, did he just tell him build an ark?
No. Yes. Yes.
Is that all he said?
No.
No. He gave him very specific instructions, right? He told him the measurements and the lengths and how to seal things, remember? So, God ensured that Noah had the technology that he needed to build the massive ark, including the pitch or tar to waterproof the boat. And it's not an easy task. So we'll look at Genesis 6, going back to Genesis. Genesis 6.
Did you say Genesis, Exodus, Deuteronomy?
Okay, let's see.
Genesis 6.
Verses 14 to 16. Okay. All right. Aviana's got this one for us. All right, listen up. Shh. Go ahead. Through 16.
Make yourself an ark of movable wood. Make use of the ark and cover it inside. And this is how you shall make it. The length of the ark shall be 300 cubits. Its width 50 cubits.
Is it cubits? Okay. Good. Okay, so it tells him at the beginning, build a large boat from what? Yours tells us what kind of wood? Gopher wood? Yep, and some of your translations might say cypress wood. And then it tells him to waterproof it using what? Using tar. And it says inside and outside. And then it says construct decks and stalls throughout its interior. What do you think that would be for? Stalls.
Animals.
For animals, to keep the animals in. But then it goes even further. Verse 15 says, make the boat about 450 feet long, 75 feet wide, 45 feet high. That's really specific, isn't it? Then you're to leave an 18-inch opening below the roof all the way around the boat. Then he says, put the door on the side and build 3 decks inside inside the boat, the lower, the middle, and the upper. So, once again, did God just say, go build a boat? No, he gave him very specific instructions. And he told him to use something called tar in order to waterproof the boat. So then so that was a type of technology because it's something that he used in order to make this boat waterproof. Because remember, technology is something that was created in order to make life easier. So then here, Genesis 9 verse 20, it says, after the flood, Noah began to cultivate the ground and he planted a vineyard. So how many of you have ever tried to grow grapes? Have you been successful? Okay, is it easy? No? Why not? Okay, now, if you did not have parents who knew how to do that process and you were just staring at a bush of grapes, would you be able to make grape juice? No. So, you need to know the science behind making wine out of grapes, right? Or making grape juice out of grapes. Growing grapes is not easy. It's not a casual thing to do. Grapes need an exact amount of moisture, good drainage, poor soil, just enough wind to prevent mold, and they need to be planted in a certain direction to catch enough sunlight. That's already a lot of things that you have to do to make sure that your grapes grow. But God gave Noah the know-how to grow a vineyard and to make wine. In other words, God continued to give Noah technology. Technology enabled Noah to build the ark and to make wine. So technology by itself, is it a bad thing?
No.
Was the tar bad?
No.
Was the winemaking process bad?
Yes.
No, technology is neutral. Now, this is an important concept, right? We talked about how the first person to create a phone did it to make life easier, right? So that you could communicate with someone far away quickly and easily. The same thing with the internet. It was to be able to get information from one place to another. Technology is just a tool, okay? So if I want to send an email, I'm going to use the computer, and I'm going to send my email through the computer. But that technology is just a tool that I can use. Now, if I pick up a hammer, which is a tool, I can choose to nail something into a piece of wood to build something really cool, or I could use it to smack someone in the head and kill them. Is the hammer evil?
Yes.
No.
You're evil.
That's right. The hammer is not evil. The hammer is a tool. It's the person who uses the hammer that decides whether they're going to use it for good or use it for evil. What's your question?
I was thinking Wine wasn't meant to be like a bad thing. Because like, but then people became
Because
Right.
back then, they didn't, they made we talk. Back then, how they made wine was a grape press where people hold ropes, slaves hold ropes, and then step on the grape, and it would go through this little hole to the stick. But now, they add alcohol to that.
Well, they
They
ferment. They create their own alcohol. Okay, so if technology is neutral, right? If the hammer is just a hammer, if it's just a tool, if the wine was just wine and the grapes were just grapes, and Noah had to make a decision what he was going to do with it, was the winemaking process, was the wine evil?
Yes.
No. But so why do we think that Noah got drunk?
Because he added bad stuff to it.
No, because it fermented.
He drank too much of it.
Oh.
He fermented it too long and then drank too much of it.
Does the Bible tell us that?
No.
Maybe.
So what do we think based on what the Bible says? Why do we think that he got drunk? Yes.
Because some people love it and they drink of it.
Okay. So if Noah is the reason why he got drunk, right? If he chose to drink too much of it, what was inside of him?
Sin.
Sin. Good. So it's his sin nature that's in him that he listened to, right? That caused him to abuse the wine that he had made and to drink too much of it.
Bad, no.
So let's see. Genesis 9 verse 21 says, one day he drank some wine that he had made and he became drunk. So we hear the same pronoun here twice, right? One day who drank some? Noah. He drank some wine and he became drunk. So the Bible puts the responsibility on who?
Noah.
On Noah. Noah made that decision. But if we look at Ephesians 5, verse 18, somebody can read that for us. Ephesians 5. Verse 18. Okay, you want to read that for us? Nice and loud.
Don't be drunk with wine because that will ruin your life. Instead, be filled with the Holy Spirit.
Woo! Now, could God get any more clear? No. What does that first line say? Nice and loud.
Don't be drunk with wine.
Don't be drunk with wine. Now, let's look at what it says. It says, don't be drunk. Now, does this verse say, don't drink wine?
No.
No. So was he acting in sin when he drank the wine that he made?
No.
What do you think?
No.
No. Was drinking the wine a sin?
No.
No. What was the sin? Getting drunk. It says, don't be drunk with wine. That next line, very important. Why? Why not? It will ruin your life. How many of you know someone who has let alcohol ruin their life?
My dad.
Probably everybody in this room knows somebody, right? Is the sin drinking the wine?
No.
What is the sin?
Getting drunk.
Getting drunk. Is the sin using your cell phone?
No.
What is the sin?
Be on it too much.
Using it for something wrong, right? Going to sites you shouldn't be on, or being on it too much, or becoming addicted to being on your phone. Is the sin the internet?
No.
No. What is the sin?
What people do on it.
Yes, what people choose to do with that technology. So once again, is technology evil? No. Technology is it's a tool, just like a hammer. And the way that technology is used depends on the person who is holding the hammer, correct? Right? So, was the wine the sin? No. Noah's use of the wine was the sin. Okay, let's see here. Okay, so we talked about vineyards. Vineyards are neutral. They're good, right? God created the earth and the world and the plants and everything and created those vineyards. So they are good. Wine, is it inherently good or bad? It's neutral. Good. Both are gifts from God. So we're going to look at an example here. We're going to go to Deuteronomy 14. Deuteronomy, Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, then Deuteronomy. Deuteronomy chapter 14, verse 26. Okay, Micah, you want to read that for us?
Verse 26.
26.
Alright. Oh yeah. When you arrive, you may use the money to buy any kind of food you want. Cattle, sheep, goats, wine, or other alcoholic drink. And feast there in the presence of the Lord your God and celebrate with your household.
Ooh. Who's read that verse before? Anyone? Anyone? So let's see what it says here. So God instructed the Israelites to celebrate and feast before Yahweh or God with wine and alcohol. Why do you think he did that? Anybody have a thought? What do you think?
So that they could be drunk in the night.
So they could what?
Yeah.
Is that what it says there? Huh? Okay. So it says you can use the money to buy any kind of food you want. Cattle, sheep, goats, wine, or other alcoholic drink. And then he wants them to celebrate, right? Now, does he tell them what to do with it once they've purchased it? No. What is he expecting?
But to drink it, ooh, he's testing them.
He's not expecting them to drink what? To drink too much, right? So he tells them you can buy all of the cattle, sheep, and goats. Now, is he telling them go get that meat and eat so much that you throw up afterward? No, he's saying go get this meat and use it to celebrate. So in the same way, right? We all have a choice to make when we go to a buffet and we get a plate of food. You can keep going and getting more plates of food until you make yourself sick, and that's called a sin. Who knows what that sin's called? Gluttony. So in the same way that drinking too much alcohol is a sin because you get drunk, eating too much food to the point where it makes you sick is also a sin because it's called gluttony. So God here is telling them, when you get there, you can buy all of these things, but he's expecting them to be responsible, right? He's expecting them not to push it to the point of sin, but to pace themselves, or not necessarily pace themselves, but to limit themselves so that it does not go to the point of sin. Yes?
Is this other types of colored wine? How do they also?
There are white grapes and there are red grapes. So white grapes will make it like a whiter, clearish color, and then the red ones will make it dark. Yeah, green grapes, yeah. Mm-hmm. Yes. The purple looking ones. They're called red. Yeah, just like the green ones are like white. Yes. Okay. Okay. All right. Go ahead and put that back into your folder. We will continue next time.